With the year 2016 coming to a close, it is worth summarising the current situation in Syria and pondering what the future may hold as we approach the threshold of 2017. To get some statistics in order, it is worth looking at Syria in terms of territorial and population control. Regarding control of habitable land, both the government and the Islamic State terrorist group hold around 1/3 of Syria each, with around 20% of Syria being under Kurdish self-declared rule and 14% under the control of the so-called moderate opposition, represented by non-Islamic State branded Salafist fundamentalists and Western-vetted mercenary groups. However, regarding the Syrian population, more than 70% resides within the government territories, whilst the remaining 30% is split between all the other factions. This reality alone justifies the protracted government policy of first securing all the major cities of Syria and trading ground for people, prior to actually attempting to liberate rural eastern Syria. In forecasting the short-term objectives for the Syrian armed forces, it would be logical to assume that the reduction of a number of large pockets in both the Homs and Damascus countryside will be in order. In liquidating the East Ghouta and Homs pockets alone, the Syrian Arab army will free up tens of thousands of more troops for service elsewhere. The implications of this will mean that a generous surplus of frontline combat troops from first-line formations will be available to carry out offensive operations against the so-called moderate jihadists and mercenaries in the Idlib region of Syria. The destruction of this massive bastion, which has always represented a strategic thorn in the side of the Syrian armed forces, will decisively neutralize the Western Syrian Salafist mercenary threat, which the United States State Department dares to call the moderate opposition. Only once Idlib province has been secured can the broad front advance across the vertical length of Syria commence against the so-called Islamic State. It must be understood that due to the operational competence of ISIS military forces, most notably in their ability to launch decisive counterattacks and their efficiency in redeploying strategic reserves between Iraq and Syria, the full might in manpower and equipment of the Syrian Arab army is required to effectively destroy the Islamic State's occupation of Syria. Key population and communication centers along the way will include Palmyra, Al-Sukna, Deir ez-Zor, Al-Raqqa, and Al-Bukamal. Thus, this represents the long-term objective of the pro-government alliance strategy for final victory. The drive to the Euphrates will be a tortuous one, and, realistically speaking, it won't be until the spring of 2018 that the opportunity to commence such an offensive will become a prospect. Until Idlib is liberated, the Syrian Arab army will likely remain regulated to a protracted defense against ISIS. The Islamic State represents one of the most combat-effective and organizationally self-supporting Frankenstein-like extensions of American and Israeli foreign policy, demonstrating its ability to stand toe-to-toe with even the most modern militaries like the Turkish armed forces and, in the case of the ongoing battle for Al-Bab, win operational victories. However, they can be defeated, and if the last 6 years are anything to go by, it is that the men and women of the Syrian military and its allies are willing to fight regardless of the odds or the circumstances. Since the liberation of Aleppo, it is really only a matter of time for the jihadist mercenary coalition in Syria. More than once in the history of the Syrian civil war has the Syrian armed forces risen, phoenix-like, from the ashes of total defeat. But with each passing day now, they become ever more accustomed to victory on the battlefield. And thus, the Syrian people, not only as a military force, but as a nation unified in times of tremendous hardship, have demonstrated their resolve in claiming back their pound of flesh.